Lovely to be here with you all this evening. My apologies for missing you last week. So I'm going to invite all of you, please sign up for our online retreat, which will be next weekend, starting Friday and all day Saturday and Sunday, and ending with satsang on Sunday night. So I do hope you can join. I say this often, but my greatest leaps on the path were made almost entirely on retreat. And so there's just so much power and transmission that comes. I've never met anyone who went on retreat and afterwards, said, I wish I didn't do that. And I'm speaking about any retreat. Anytime we have an opportunity to press the pause button on our busy life, it is so utterly transformative. And so please sign up if you haven't already. The recordings will be available after the retreat if the time zones or some of the sessions don't work for you. But I would love to have you. And it's a time where God comes forward and really blesses you in such a huge way. And, it's really, it's just such a blessing for me, for you, for all of us. It does something for our world when we come together as a collective and make a leap and say we want something higher, something greater. And so please sign up for this. Don't wait till the last moment and then email me saying you don't have the link or something like that. It happens every time with a number of people. But anyways, I do hope you can join. And if you pay attention this week, you'll probably start to feel the energies of the retreat beginning during the Wednesday night meditation is normally when the download starts to happen. And so please join. And just a quick note, the only group this week that will be affected is the Kundalini group on Friday. We'll just be on retreat during that time. So no Kundalini group Friday the 10th. All right, hope that makes sense. So yes, welcome, and please sign up for the retreat, and we would love to have you. Okay. So I'm going to invite you all to close your eyes. We're going to do a little inquiry practice this evening. I invite you just to feel into your body, feel into your consciousness. And I invite you to reflect a little bit on where your ego is rooted within you. Is it rooted in your mentality or in your emotionality? Are you a mentally centered person or are you an emotionally centered person? And I invite you just to take a moment and just ask, inquire, when you identify as an emotional being, how does that affect your experience? When you identify as an emotional being, how does that affect your experience? Different way of asking this is, are you a slave to your emotions? Are you a slave to how you feel? And if you're a mental person, sometimes we're both. Are you a slave to how you think? In what ways do your emotions enslave you? In what ways do your emotions enslave you? In what ways does your thinking mind enslave you? In order for this practice to be powerful, requires that you are deeply honest about your experience. In what ways do your thoughts color your vision? In what way do your thoughts mask the vast, spacious presence that you are? I invite you to smile a little bit and you got to look at yourself with a little bit of humor, a little bit of lightheartedness. To see that being a human it's kind of a silly thing. And you can open your eyes if you like. Being a human it's a silly thing, isn't it? Oh, earlier today, I was at Costco. I'm in a place where there's a Costco, and we needed new plates and bowls for our home. And my wife and I, we had a little break from our daughter. My child was at home with grandma here. And, I was walking through this mega store, a little bit confused how there could be so many things for sale. I'm not used to being around such places, so many options. And my mother called and she said, "Hey, we've been locked out of the house. Is there a spare key?" And there was not. And so, my wife, she got pretty scared, pretty nervous. So all of a sudden we're running out of the store and I'm driving fast to get home because my elderly mother and my little girl and the two dogs are trapped outside and it's hot and it's raining. Oh, my wife, she was quite upset, quite nervous. I said, "Hey, sweetie, it's going to be okay. Like, no big deal. We'll be home in 30 minutes. And it's going to be okay." But sometimes in life, it's just these little things, these little inconveniences, sometimes big inconveniences. And we immediately lose our perspective. We lose touch with these basic truths that we are almost always mostly safe. Almost always we're well taken care of, well fed, well supported. And as soon as something little comes up, we lose our perspective. And one of the beautiful things about spiritual awakening is a true awakening. You wake up out of your mind, so beyond your mind, beyond your emotional nature, and you know yourself as something much greater than mind and emotion. And so I ask each of you, how many of you know yourself? Can you join me right now in knowing yourself as something greater than what you think and how you feel? To true spiritual awakening, it just starts with this one basic truth. Can you know yourself as something greater than your thoughts and greater than your emotions? And I can ask the question differently. What is it that's here right now that can witness your own thoughts? What is it that can witness your emotions? And the fact that there is something here that can witness, that shows you that right here, right now, is something that is awake and something that is free. And so the question on the path is, are you aligned with this basic truth? So simple, it's almost boring. But it's so boring that people miss it. It's just right here. Right here is a doorway to immense freedom. And it starts with this single step of realizing, seeing that I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. Emotions are something that happen in the body. Thoughts are something that just flow through the consciousness. But as human beings, we've trained ourselves to believe we are our thoughts. We are our religion. We are our political party. We are our career, how we've defined ourselves. And because of this, it creates so much suffering, so much pain. That there's a me here, a character, and you have harmed me, or the world has harmed me, or the world has stressed me out. But if you step back and see the me, smile at the me, perhaps even compassionately comfort the me. I'm having to do a lot of comforting of my human self because I'm in a new land. And I just left a land with lots and lots of forest fires and smoke and immense beauty and fire and immense beauty and deserts and no humidity. And now I'm in a land where I think I saw more rain today than I saw all of last year in Colorado. Just in one day, I said, wow, it's raining so much. And I'm sweating so much because it's so humid. What is humidity? You know, all of us, the locals here are making fun of us because we just keep talking about how hot and humid it is. And they're just smiling at us saying, oh, this is just the beginning, Craig. This is just the beginning. I said, what do you mean just the beginning? And so as human beings, like there's this struggle always to comfort the body, to comfort the emotional natures. If I could just get comfortable, but how long does comfort last before the mind finds some problem? You know, I was falling asleep last night. I was very, very comfortable. And my mind woke me up and said, oh, but you didn't lock the car and it's still full of stuff. Because we're moving in still, we're unpacking and there's just stuff everywhere. And so the more we identify with that mind, the more limited your consciousness becomes. The more you identify with your spacious nature, the more free you become. And the beauty is the space is here all the time. Your consciousness is eternally spacious. It's so spacious. It will receive my voice if I'm speaking in a soft way. It will receive my voice if I'm screaming at you. Receive my voice if I'm being sweet or if I'm cursing with profanity. Our consciousness is so open and spacious in every moment that it receives everything. Clouds, rain, heat, cold, smoke, fire, danger, good times, bad times, it receives it all. And so all of us have a choice. Do we want to be the space which receives, welcomes, without judgment? Have you ever noticed that the sky never judges the rain, and it doesn't judge humidity, it doesn't judge global warming and fire, it doesn't judge if it's blue, if it's gray, if it's where I'm living now, there's these pinks and oranges and purples, and rainbows. It doesn't grasp onto rainbows. It's the human that grasps and has aversion, like we latch onto or we have aversion to. And as soon as you play that game, this is what the Buddha taught, as soon as you play the game of grasping and aversion, you suffer. But if you allow yourself to be like the sky, empty and free, non-judgmental, where is there a problem? Where is there a problem? And if there is a problem, because sometimes there is a problem, not necessarily in this vast view. In the vast view is just good. It's just good as life is. But this vast view, it has an intelligence to it. So if it sees that the body is suffering and the mind is suffering, if it sees this, then its response is intelligent compassion. So when this vast view sees pain, sees suffering, it responds with love, with clarity, with an expression of Buddha nature. Like today when I got the call that my family was locked out, Buddha nature said, okay, let's get out of here. Let's just hop in the van and let's race home and set the pilgrims free. Open the doors, open the gates, get them inside. But when our mind, if we're in our mind or if we're wired as an emotional person, it's, oh my God, someone's going to get wet and someone's going to be hot and they're going to die. It's like no one's going to die here. Not till the very end. At the very end, we'll all die, but not in this moment. Not in this moment. It's okay. It's okay. And so can we be okay? Can we see we're okay? Can we realize the inherent okayness of life? And if there is a legitimate tragedy, legitimate pain, legitimate suffering, this okayness doesn't just sit back aloof. It responds with compassion, with kindness, with softness, with gentleness, with love, with sweetness. It responds. And what you find when you step fully back into this emptiness is that a response will come from the emptiness without any thought. Without any thought. But our egoic nature, often the first thing it does when it hears of tragedy is it gets tense and then it holds. It just holds. And then it thinks. It has repetitive thoughts again and again and again. Have you ever noticed that when the body's in pain, or if your partner's in pain, your mind is like shouting at you, fix them, fix this, do this, hurry up. And of course, that doesn't help. It doesn't help to tell yourself 100 times to hurry up when you're already going fast. It doesn't help to think over and over again about how much you are suffering or how much your partner or child is suffering. What's helpful is to allow yourself to be silent. And out of the silence will arise the appropriate action, the healing action, the true action. And so again, I invite you to look at your human self. You can close your eyes again. We'll play this game again. Or you close your eyes and you feel into your body. And I invite you to see your emotional nature. To see its program, its wiring, its conditioning. Whether it clinches or whether it fights or whether it argues, it tries to control, if it resists. There's so many different ways the emotional nature gets stuck. And just seeing it. Can you see it with love? Can you see your emotional nature with love? So no judgment. This isn't a spiritual group that judges one's humanity and says you're bad, you're wrong. You're wrong for having emotions. But can you simply see your emotional nature with love? With love. And I invite you to take a step further, to take a deep breath and breathe this immense love and compassion into the part of you which gets emotional, which gets clingy, which fights, which resists, which attaches. And again, we take a deep breath and breathe love. Breathing love. Into the one that is emotional. Breathing love into the one that is emotional. And then I invite you to just picture the one who thinks a lot, who tries to sort everything out, that tries to control through thinking. I see some of you are smiling as you know this one intimately, the one who tries to control through thinking. And can you breathe love into this one? Inviting the emotional one to soften, the one who thinks so much. Thanks so much. Can you soften here, open here, and breathe love into this one? And please, it's not a doing, it's not a forcing, not an efforting. There's love here already. There's love here already. We're inviting this immense love just to flow into the places within us that get a little diluted, or get a lot diluted. Just love meeting it all. Meeting it all. And so you can open your eyes again. I moved to this town, this little town in South Carolina, and the people here are so utterly friendly. It's like crazy how friendly people are, and everyone's outside and coming over and knocking on the door and saying hello and introducing themselves. You know, on this spiritual path, this is how we heal. This is how we awaken. Is through bringing these parts of the self into contact with love. You know, I have this little girl, and I was a little nervous that she wasn't going to have any friends. And I think every day we've been here, I think we've only been here, I don't know how many days, maybe 4 days or so, maybe less. But every day so far, she's had a friend to play with. That's amazing, to move to a new town and to have just kids coming up, little girls, you know, coming over and just playing with my daughter. And there's a swimming pool in the neighborhood. And so there's just kids there. And sometimes, you know, as humans, we're shy and we kind of hang out in our isolated little box. And I'm not letting my daughter do that. I'm not letting her be isolated. I'm kind of taking her, just giving her a gentle push. Not even a push, just a gentle kind of, you know, hurrying her along and letting her know, hey, there's friends here, there's people here who want to play, who want to connect. And with our ego, we want to just gently bring our egoic nature into contact with this love and with this space, which is always here. When the ego's alone and isolated, it can get really crazy, really nutty. It can think the end of the world is coming. It can, fall into states of depression and anxiety and fear. And nobody loves me. And these types of states. But there's a funny thing that happens when our egoic nature, when our human nature comes into contact with love and space and Buddha nature. The ego softens and it melts and it lets its walls down. And it begins to fall into alignment with reality. With reality. Oh, as I was driving across the country, I had a terrible drive. I drove through like 12 hours of forest fires. It was just terrible to see the poor West. I love the Western half of the United States. I love it so much. Just with global warming in the last 10 years, there's been so much fire. And when you drive across the desert, there's this thing that happens with your mind. It just starts expanding bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's one of my favorite things to do. And as I was driving across the desert, my mind was expanding. And there's a part of me that was really grieving the loss of my home that I had lived in for so long. And all my old friends. And then just grieving for the earth and how much fire and destruction there is right now. But there was no resistance to it either. When your mind is open, if you have emotions, they just flow and they empty out of you. And they're held in this space of love. Great love, immense love. So even though I was doing all this grieving while I was driving a really big moving truck, I had this paradoxical experience of just being flooded with love and knowing myself as space. And there's this funny, like bizarre okayness with it all. Like if somebody looked, like if the highway patrol pulled me over and said, "The hell is going on in that truck?" It's like this guy's falling apart. There's all these tears pouring down his eyes. What's wrong with you, son? There's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. I feel totally awake and totally alive and totally free and completely grieving all at once. And this is the paradox of being awake and human. Is you can have this immense experience, and in this immense experience, there's room for the past to die. There's room to see things as they are. And there's room to grieve the pain and the sadness when you see, a fire and smoke that goes on for 12 hours. There's room to see it, to receive it, to grieve it, to release it. There's room for it all. And you don't feel burdened by it. This is such a paradoxical thing for the ego. If it says, well, if there's sadness here, that's bad. If there's happiness, it's good. But when one is awake, all is welcome. All is welcome. Nothing is pushed away or fought with or resisted. It's all welcome. And so I invite you just to ask yourself right now, is this true in your experience? Is all welcome? Is this moment welcome? Is this human experience welcome? Is the immense, expansive nature of your divine self welcome? Do you know yourself as this hugeness? Or do you know yourself simply as this limited human being? Do you know yourself as this hugeness? Do you know yourself as this unconditionally loving heart? Do you know yourself as Buddha nature? Or are you limited by the thoughts that flow through your consciousness and the emotions that move through the body? What is it that you are? Who am I? Was the primary spiritual question for Maharishi. Who am I? Am I the hugeness or am I the smallness? What is it that you are? And so anyways, if anyone has questions, please bring them forward. I believe there were a lot of email questions, and I think I just don't have them. Let me see if I can find some. I think that might have fallen through the cracks. I apologize if I missed your emails. Yeah, I'm looking for them, and I had so many things to do this week. I just didn't pull it off. So does anyone have a question? Does anyone want to, if you do, you can raise your hand. You can put a question in the chat. Terry's writing, Craig, where are you now? Where am I now? My wife was asking that question today when we were driving through a city. She said, where are we? Because we haven't lived in a city or near a city. And I haven't lived near a city in 30 years. It's so crazy that people live in these things called cities. I live near Savannah, Georgia, but I live in South Carolina, and I live, like right near the ocean. The good news for me is there's a giant wetlands between the city and me, so I feel safe. I feel safe that the city won't gobble me up. So the city can't grow toward me. It grows in a different direction. As you see, cities make me a little nervous. Okay. Catherine. Yeah, Terry, I'm sorry, Terry's typing in bird watching. Yes, there are so many birds where I live. And they're so beautiful, so many different types of birds. If I was one of those old men who walk around with binoculars and a little guidebook of birds, a bird book, I would be in heaven, because there's a bazillion birds here. And there's lakes and ponds and swamps and ocean and Atlantic Ocean. My little girl, I have to tell this story because my little girl's been to the Pacific Ocean so many times. We'd go to San Diego or in Northern California to Santa Cruz, up in the redwoods in that area on the ocean. My little girl, she stepped in the ocean here. And so if you've been to the Pacific is freezing. And so she's only known this cold ocean. And she got to this ocean and she said, Daddy, why is the ocean warm? And I said, because it's not cold over here. And then she got in the ocean for the first time. She was able just to play in the ocean. Whereas in the Pacific, it's like that Wim Hof guy. It's like an ice bath. You jump in and it's like, oh my Lord, and you jump out. So, okay, let's hear from Catherine. Catherine, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I hope you enjoy the thunderstorms on the East Coast.
Oh
That's
my
my
Lord,
favorite
my
part.
daughter's terrified of
Oh no.
thunder.
Well,
But yeah, I love it. I love the thunderstorm and the lightning and the clouds and um yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. So anyways, what's on your mind?
I guess this is a really good topic, and because I'm moving this month the opposite direction from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I'm just going through a point in my life where it's just so many endings all at once. Like
Yeah.
I ended a relationship, I'm changing careers, and I'm like changing to a dramatically new location. And
Yeah.
like you were talking about the emotional body, and I'm a very emotionally driven person. That's my
Yeah.
you can probably feel that coming off of me like blast.
Yeah.
And I feel like my lower, especially like my solar plexus, it just like puts this armor around it, and it's just like, oh, I'll just shove it into contraction. And I can feel my throat chakra is like pretty open because I'm like the kind of person who
Yeah.
wants to knife the chick at the drive-through. So I don't think it's like I can feel the emotion come up, but
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know like if there's a bridge somewhere that's like, I don't know, that I could work with
Yeah, yeah.
that.
There's a couple, I call them, say, tantric doorways
Mm,
within the body. And then also outside of the body. And so, for example, like if you have lots of emotion, and this is true if you have lots of thought, can you notice the space in which emotion arises? And if you begin to identify with the space that can receive the emotion, so if you can identify with that spaciousness,
mm,
that will help to balance you. And I don't always like the word balance, but in this case, there's a truth to it that if you just know yourself like as this, it can feel a little bit crazy. But when you know yourself as this space and there is this happening, and this kind of just begins to empty out of you like a volcano into the space, there's this balancing quality where you feel yourself as this big, open, spacious nature,
mm,
which has room for this. And when there's room for this thing starts to kind of calm down. And even if it is wild, there's a sense of, and that's okay. And that's okay. And so, one of the things you can pay attention to or just inquire into is there space here for this emotion? Is there space here for this energy? And if you notice, like your mind will often say, nope, nope, there's no space. I have to repress it back in. I have to keep the armor up. I have to keep it all inside me because the world can't handle it, or whatever, whatever the thought may be. It's not safe to express all this. And there may be some truth to that. Like there's a time and a place to express emotions. But the energy, like the pure, raw energy of emotion, if you ever notice, there's always space for this energy. Like if there wasn't space for this energy wouldn't be here. And so it's good to realize this, that there's room, there's space, there is actual space for this emotion, for this intensity. And so to begin to just acknowledge this. And the same is true with thoughts. Like even if, let's have a little fun here. Like if we have the weirdest, most bizarre, most distorted, most disturbing thoughts ever, that's okay. There's space for those. If there wasn't space, those thoughts would not arise. If there wasn't space, this emotion wouldn't arise. It's only our superego that judges it and says, this should not be here. Mm-hmm. And so a great question for Catherine to ask herself is, like, who would I be? What would my experience be if I didn't judge my feeling nature? Like, what would life be like if I didn't judge it? And if you notice, it's almost like some tears start coming forward. Like, and if we don't judge that, like, I cry all the time, but I never judge it. Like, I never judge it. In this world, there's so much chaos and confusion and pain. It's like, if we're not crying every now and then, it's like, are you not feeling what's happening here on planet Earth? Are we not feeling? When you just walk around on planet Earth with an open heart, you're going to shed some tears. But if you're okay with shedding tears, if you're okay just with that you are like kind of like the way the universe feels, like you're a feeling instrument, a sensing instrument for God, as God. Like you're going to shed some tears here on planet Earth when you just see what's happening. And you're also going to laugh. You're going to laugh and you're going to cry and you're going to smile. And I'm just walking around just amazed at how green this world is that I'm living in now. I was living in a world that was really brown in Colorado. It's like brown and gray and the brightest blue sky ever. And here it's like everything is so green. I'm like, my God, I'm just falling in love with. My neighbor has a banana tree and I have a palm tree in my yard. I'm like, God, I'm just staring at that tree, just falling in love with a banana tree, a palm tree, and all these Hawaiian flowers, and I'm staring at a dead bug on the ground. It's like, oh my God, look at God's beautiful creation, and then crying at something else, but to allow it to flow, and that there's room, there's space for it all. And when you know there's space, when you realize yourself as the space has this very calming quality. And people think, oh, it's so calm, you never have an emotion. It's like, there's some weird spiritual myth that when you wake up, you don't have emotions. No, you feel so much more, but you're not judging it. You're not labeling it as bad. It's just flowing through you. And there's the space which allows it all to be okay, which receives it all as okay. And so I encourage you to feel into this and just to notice more and more. There is space for you to be you. There's space for your energy to be energy, for your emotion to be emotion. There's room for that. There's space for it. And the more you know yourself as space, the less identified you are with the emotion of it. And then loss, it just feels like something emptying out. It's funny, you'll feel it more, but it'll hurt less, which is quite strange as a human being. Like you actually feel it more fully, but it hurts less. The mind says, how can that be? Like, how can you? But again, like, you have to experience it, and you are experiencing it, where you feel it more and it hurts less. And so realizing space, so stepping into space, consciously, like meditating on space. And again, like, I'm not speaking about some boring, like, Buddhist, kind of thing where it's dead. This space is vast and expansive. It's true Buddha nature. Not some boring, dead thing you read about in a book, but just notice how much space is in a room, how much space is in your home or in your apartment building, how much space is in the sky. You're going to see, oh my God, there's so much space. And there's space for everything. There's space for you to move. There's space for you to let go of everything. There's space for you to do what I'm doing. I'm receiving a new life. You're going to be receiving a new life soon. There's a space for things to fall away, but you're not going to fall away into a vacuum. You're going to find all kinds of new things will come forward into this space. And the beautiful thing about space is it can never be filled up. So there's always this expansive, like, peace and breathing room in it all. And so it's deeply healing. Deeply healing. And so I encourage all of us to realize this space. Again, this is a tantric doorway when you kind of just step out of your mind and step out of your emotional nature and begin to realize yourself as something much, much bigger.
I have a follow-up question to that question.
Yeah.
So I guess now I realize, like, my error and maybe an understanding, like, how the throat chakra is maybe like working in this then is like, and if this is all too intellectual, like, I'm totally fine with that too. But like, there's like, I'm having maybe difficulty then like differentiating like space and judgment. Like, sometimes I can feel myself get big. And so I can tap to space sometimes, and maybe that's not the space you're talking about, but then maybe it's almost like there's this governor energy on the space. Is that like, that's maybe judgment? I guess maybe.
Yeah, no, that's judgment. So if you look at that governor, I think is the word you used, energy. That's a good word for it. The governor. What's it trying to do? Like, if you look at its intelligence,
It's trying to keep me safe.
it's trying to keep you safe. Yeah. And so let's just look for a moment here, and everyone can play this game. Is it dangerous to be big in a spacious way?
Not in a spacious way, but maybe in the emotions that would come up in the space.
Okay, well, let's look at both. So if you allow yourself to be really big, like, I can remember one day when I was driving across at this place in Colorado called the San Luis Valley. It's just this immense valley. Big 14,000 foot peaks on both sides. And all of a sudden, the experience of Craig, like the little Craig, began to dissolve, and I just became as big as the sky, big as the valley. And, like, the little character Craig was still somehow driving a car through the valley. And there was just a sense of, like, this is wonderful. Like I'm okay to be this big. It's like I love being this big. It's just like the lid came off of me. And ever since that, I've never, I guess I've never really been small again, but I didn't get into any danger, any trouble to be as big as this valley, as big as this sky. And so if you allow yourself to be spacious, I mean, you are, all of us, already are this. We just don't know it because we're identified with a small part of ourselves. But when you realize this, it's like, oh yeah, like this is what I am. Of course, this is what we are. And we tend to laugh deeply when we realize this. Like, there's no danger here in being big. No danger. Like, like sometimes like governors like, oh no, you can't be that big. People will think of this and that about you. Everyone, just say something kind of rude here. No one cares. Like everyone's just staring at their cell phone. Like they have no idea. They're just going like this. They're in their world. They're in their private prison of their little me, their little self. Like no one cares. Like I walk around as a Buddha all day long. Nobody notices. It's like they don't notice at all. At all. No special treatment. No one sees me. No one's judging me. Dude, no one cares. Occasionally, someone might see you and be like, wow, you're big like I'm big. You know, like the only people who are going to see you are the ones who are actually awake. Okay, so there's no danger in this. In a sense, it's just like being, my friends use this term. They say, like when they do something stealth, they say they're being like they call it being stealth. They say, I just go in there like a ninja. It's like unseen. Nobody sees you. No one notices. There's no great honor in any of this. Like people think about, oh, all this honor. Like no one will notice. It's very, it's very ordinary in a sense that like you just kind of just slip on through. Now, the second thing you said something about your emotions. So tell me the thing you said about your emotions.
Oh, I don't remember, but I do know what came up after, which was, yeah, I have this big self-consciousness energy. It's just like, oh, like how will I be perceived? How am I? It's the judge,
Yeah.
the governor. It's really
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah. And so how will I be perceived? So this is a different tantric doorway that I was going to get to, which is if you look at the one who's concerned about this, how will I be perceived? What is her emotional feeling driving that thought or that question, that concern?
It's like a perfectionism. It's like I want like a people pleasing, wanting to be.
And I want to, so if you finish the sentence, like I want or I need to please because why?
That's where my value is. Yeah.
Oh, that's where my value is. So I want you to look and see if that's actually true. So is your value in your inherent divinity, in the goodness of your heart and your expansive divine nature? Or is it in keeping the people around you happy and doing a good job?
There's a lot of pain there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain there. So there's a lot of pain there. It's often because we've believed that thought for a long time. That my value comes when I please the people around me. And so, I'll just tell you, this is coming from experience because I was a pleaser most of my life until I began to wake up. That pleasing leads to suffering for you. It's like a basic equation. The more you please, the more you suffer. Because when you're pleasing, you're always putting yourself last. And so I'm going to invite you to do something that's going to sound very egotistical, but deeply healing. Is I'm going to invite you to put yourself first. So if you please nobody, and just to play with this, like, what would happen if I just put myself first? And what I mean by that, let's say, just in a humanistic way, is what if you honored your wants and your needs first? And what if you take that a step further, honored your divinity first? So if you take care of your human egoic needs, like your human bodily needs, your human physical needs, if you take care of yourself first as an act of love. So instead of pleasing outward, what if we pleased inward first? Like, let's imagine that as a great kind of shift of things. If you were an outward pleaser, what if we're an inward pleaser? You are loving you. That could be, I'm going to say this, that's probably the most compassionate thing you could do here on planet Earth, like at this stage of the journey, is for you to love you fully and completely in the here and now. And there's a funny thing that happens when you honor you, when you make you first. You actually become a Buddha. If you make yourself last, you become a martyr. And most martyrs like really suffer from resentment. And there's like anger, and then there's judgment. There's just all these silly neurotic games that are very inefficient. And you end up hating and judging others and being violent toward oneself. It's just a terrible way to live. And again, like, I know that from experience. So if you make yourself last, you'll be resentful. If you make yourself first, in a funny way, actually you begin to wake up to your divinity, and as a result, you become deeply kind to those around you, but not from a place of pleasing. You're kind just because you realize, oh, like, I'm so kind to myself that there's kindness that just overflows out of me. You kind of hooked into or plugged into this universal love that just pours through you. So anyways, Catherine, I'm going to invite you to play with some of these things, okay?
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so good to see you. Yeah, wonderful to have you. Okay. All right. It's getting late in the evening here for me, but let's see. Just ask that the next questions are short, clear, and direct, just because of the time. Let's see if I can unmute David. Are you here, David?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I sent 2 questions to the chat, but I raised my hand because I thought I'd just go ahead and say them out loud. The first
Okay.
one, when you asked the question earlier about who is it that comforts you when you're comforting yourself, and that's what I was wondering. Who is it? The person that, or the thing that is opening up to comfort the troubled or hurt being. Who is that? And then I guess a related question, which was, I think a related question, was the other one that I wrote down, which was that, I practice trying to be as expansive and open as possible when I'm laying down and experiencing and meditating on the movement of kundalini energy through me, and I let it purposely. I'm as passive as possible when I let the energy flow and let it go where it wants and how it wants. And sometimes, it's on the edge of wanting to do something, and I almost feel like an anticipation, but I hold back from trying to push it over the edge of where it feels like it's going. Basically, what I'm saying is I try to be as open and allowing as possible when that's happening. And I'm wondering if that's the openness that you're talking about, that at least it feels like what I'm doing is practicing something mentally, but you're seeming to imply that it's a something else.
Yeah. So let me ask you something, David. Could you imagine? Well, how about this? Is there something here that heard what you just said?
Yeah. Yes.
So what's that?
I've always thought it's me, but I get that. But I guess there's, so intellectually I don't know, but intellectually I think, okay, it's some sort of screen or a receptive.
Yeah. So let's forget about everything intellectual here, and so let's just all acknowledge there's something here that just heard what you said, and that something is allowing. And if you feel into that something, it's compassionate, it's not judging, it's just received what you said. And if you really feel into that something, it has a heart and it has an intelligence and it's spacious. And I'm going to bring forth one more quality, and it's indestructible. And by that, I mean, it's been here your whole life. And so, David, if you feel into your presence, like when I feel into your presence, I feel almost like this innocent, childlike curiosity, a very gentle, tender heart. Can you feel that? Do you know what I'm speaking about?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So that's you. That's you. And what if you just allowed yourself to be that simple? And in that simplicity, there may be a mind that arises, and a human that arises, and a questioning that arises. And we can allow for that. It's already happening. So the allowing is already here. The space is already here. The tenderness is already here. And can we know ourselves simply as that? And if you notice this tenderness that you are, it's already doing the love thing. It's already doing the compassion thing. But if we identify with what Catherine's calling the governor, or what I'll call the superego, or the doer, or the efforting one, the controlling one, the trying to figure it out one, the philosophical one. When we identify with these things, we become limited. But to allow yourself to be this bigger, spacious presence that just allows. And so to say it differently, Instead of identifying like most people identify like with this like small command center in the head. Do you know that place?
Yeah. Yes.
So if we step out of that place, if you step backwards a couple feet, and then step a couple feet further back, and a couple feet further back, and a couple feet further back. And as you're stepping back, you're also expanding. And as we're expanding, that tenderness and the innocence of your heart is expanding. And if you know yourself as this one, what is life like? It's a lot different. It's a lot different. It's a lot different. And so are you with me here, my friend?
Yes.
Yeah. And so to give yourself permission, if you just play with this, just to give yourself permission to step back and back and back, expand more and more and more, and to see if you can just allow yourself to be expansive without being like this, like this contracted one in the head thinking, but just allow that one to really expand. When you do so, then you can see, is there a problem? Is there anything I really need to do? Because when we expand in this way, loving is already happening. Like love it's just here. And we are it. And it is us. It's one and the same. And again, please don't anyone take this philosophically. This is a direct experience. And the question is can you stay in your direct experience? Not in the thoughts, but can you stay in your experience? Can you stay in the experience? And so I'll leave you with that, David. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. And like when I look into your room, can you see a picture of yourself on your computer screen?
Yes.
So one of the things that like as human beings we do is like we think like this is David, like this body thing. But when you look on your screen, I want you to see that what you are is the entirety of your room. And like in your room, like I love your room. I love that light. What is that light above you?
Yeah, that's a light. It's a strange light. It's a floor lamp.
It's an incredible light. One time when I saw an eclipse in Colorado, they had those they're like those little crescent moons, and your light, there was like 10 trillion of those just shining everywhere. It was so cool to see, but your light is reminding me of that. But one of the things that happens is we expand, our sense of self changes. So instead of us knowing ourselves as like this body, anywhere where we walk, we feel as if we are the same size as the room or our home, or when it starts turning into the sky, things start getting really weird. But we begin to know ourselves as space instead of the one thinking in the head. And one of the leaps, if we're a mental person, is to notice the space in which thought arises. If you're walking in your room, notice the space in which your body arises. Notice the space in which all the objects in your room arise. But just to notice the space, to experience the space directly. And again, this is not a philosophical thing. This is an experiencing. To experience the space. And if you feel into space, space is inherently peaceful. It has a gentle love and tenderness about it. It has a simplicity of being. And of course, it's so expansive. So expansive. So anyways, good to see you, David.
Thank you.
Of course. I hope that got somewhere close to responding to your question. I hope it did. Yeah. Okay. We'll hear from Mallory, and then I think we'll call it a night after Mallory. Let's see. Mallory, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. So the topic of spaciousness is very relatable. Yesterday I had like a meditation experience where I felt like the whole room and even larger than that. But
Yeah.
within that experience, it also led to like ungroundedness, uncenteredness, and some trauma came up. So just a little worried to go back into that space.
Yeah. So like a couple tricks, like when the Buddha, say for example, got a little ungrounded, he would reach down and he'd touch the earth. And if his mind was like, oh my God, I'm ungrounded, I'm feeling crazy, I'm feeling wild, he just did this little thing where he just took his hand, just touched the earth. And he said, this is what's real. This is what's real. And so, I do it all the time. I reach down and touch the earth. It's just like, all right, let's get a little grounded here. Like sometimes I get too spacious, and the joke around my house is I run into walls, I run into things, I run into people. And, I just reach down and I touch the earth, and that helps me get grounded. I walk barefoot in the grass, or, you can do all kinds of fun stuff, like take a cold shower. You can take a hot shower, but I like taking a cold shower. And it's just like, boom, it kind of gets you in the body again. Now, if trauma comes up, if you notice, the space is allowing for the trauma to arise. And if you begin to look, there's kind of, there's an intelligence to this space. So if you become really spacious and trauma starts arising, that's simply your body telling you, hey, there's something here that's beginning to flow in this space. And specifically with trauma, it's telling you, I'm a lot of energy that was once repressed, and now that I realize there's space, I want to run free. And so one of the things that happens, like if you ever go on, like say like a big, like one of those Goenka retreats, like a 10-day meditation retreat, you look around the room, you'll see there'll be a lot of people just crying or just laughing hysterically. And it's because they step into space. And when you first step into space, everything that you repressed is going to begin to empty out of you. And that can be a little weird at first. But if we open in our lower belly, like these deeper levels of Buddha nature, we open to a strength. And this strength, it comes with an intelligence that, hey, like I can handle this. This is good. It's good for trauma to release. If we're not connected to this strength, there's a thought, oh my God, this is too much. I can't handle this. Oh boy, like what's going to happen here? And it's like, what happens if trauma starts coming forward? We normally cry. We normally shake. And that's good. Like imagine if we just kept that trauma repressed in us for the rest of our life. Like my father, he was deeply traumatized individual. He kept it all within him his whole life. He didn't want to let any of it out. And when you walk around with that much trauma, your mind starts screaming at you. And it screams for a substance like alcohol, or I mean, you're in Colorado, so the green stuff, or we have this what's it called, opioid epidemic here in the US. I guess it's actually the whole world. Give me some of that, And so if we repress our pain, there's a good chance, if we just keep it all within us, we don't let it flow out in this space, it's a good chance we'll eventually find a substance that will help us to numb the pain and continue to repress, the trauma.
Oh.
And there's this thing that happens if we're going to be a Buddha, if we're going to be Christ-like, we have to be willing to feel. We have to know about how to let go. And again, trauma is just energy. People like use the word trauma like it's this thing that's so bad. It's just like everyone has trauma. And trauma is just energy. It's just like this. And it just wants to empty out of us. Empty out of us through tears or through shaking. And, and all mammals have it. It's like when a dog has trauma, it shakes.
Wow.
And then the trauma's gone. But it's not like I shouldn't be shaking. It just shakes. It just shakes. And then it empties out of us. Human beings make trauma way too complicated. Trauma is simply energy. And so this space is loving. If you trust in this space, it will receive your trauma. And like when my space first opened up, all my trauma came forward and I cried for like 4 hours straight. And then I laughed for like 2 hours straight. And I walked out in the street and I looked like a lunatic because I had so much tears and slobber and mucus and laughter and expansiveness. And I just walked around like a lunatic in the street, like, like just so crazy, like a hot mess might be a better word. But I wasn't a hot mess. I was just someone who was waking up and letting go of lots of things all at once. And again, like it's just feeling. It's just shaking. It's just emptying out of you. It's very good. And when you begin to see this space, when you begin to honor this space, it's not like a dumb, dead space. There's a quiet love to it. Mm-hmm. And this love holds the trauma. It receives it. Like it fully receives it. And when you begin to trust in this space has a quality of, I'll say, the Divine Mother to it. Mm. That holds you and lets you cry. And like in my case, lets you slobber and, just pour mucus all over yourself. You're just slobbering and crying, grieving and letting go so much. It receives it. It has a motherly quality to it. It's not an empty void. So there's an intelligence to this space if you begin to trust it. When you really open, you see there's this heavenly quality to this spacious nature, holy quality. So much compassion. So utterly beautiful. And so I invite you just to play with it. It's like, is it okay? And a good question for you, a good question for any of us is it okay to feel? Like, is it safe to feel? And don't ask your mind, but ask the space. Like, is it safe to feel? Is it safe to be big? Is it safe to release? Is it safe to let go? And you'll hear, yes. Mm. Yes, of course. It's so okay. We all want just to let go. We all want just to let go. And so can you feel the truth in this?
Yeah, again.
Yeah. And there's a sweetness to it. Again, this is not like dead, empty. You know, you were reading some of those non-dual teachers that didn't have heart.
Yeah.
This space has heart, like so much heart. And it's not like your little human heart, and it's not the doing and the efforting heart like that that David was speaking about. This space is heart.
Mm.
When you start waking up to this space and you realize you are this space, it's like you get another heart. You get God's heart as your own heart. And so it's not like you, the human, trying to do and navigate trauma and open, you know, all this. It's no, there's you, all of you are being held. All of you are being held by this immensity. And again, that has this quality of the Divine Mother. So held, like she's holding not only the whole earth, the entirety of the universe. Holding it all, receiving it all, breathing into it all. Compassionate toward it all. And there's a warmth and a nurturing quality to it. And so I invite you to play around with this, but many people don't see the Divine Mother simply because they don't trust in her. But it's one of these things like with my little girl, there's kids running around in the streets out here. She'll never see them. She'll never see her new friends unless she begins to trust in them first. You got to kind of trust a little first. When you trust, all of a sudden there's all these friends around you. But if you don't trust, you're like, who are all these? I'm not even going to get involved. I'm going to stay home, stay safe, you know, like, no, like go out and be connected, and be held and be loved. So we have to trust and go forward with trust. But if we go forward with fear and I'm traumatized and I can't handle this, we kind of stay stuck there. We kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. As it takes a little bit of willingness, is a different type of word, to open. And then you see, like, if you give God 1 ounce of willingness, she'll overwhelm you with like trillions of pounds of love. You know, just say it silly like that. But like if you give her 1 ounce of trust, 1 ounce of willingness, she'll respond. You know, they say in the Bible tenfold, but I say like a billionfold. When you really step into this love and this mercy, it is ridiculous how big it is, how immense it is, how abundant it is. And so anyways, so nice to have you, Mallory. Yeah, of course. Okay. So I want to see you all in retreat. I want to see you all Wednesday night. I want to see you all again. I want to see you all again. I see the beauty of your hearts, and it's immense. This world needs your heart, needs your love, needs your expansive expression. And so I'll leave you all with that. Good night, everyone. So nice to be with you.